Good morning, everyone. I'd like to open this Polk County Board of Commissioners. It's July 29th, 2026. All commissioners are present. Extra agendas are on the table near the back door. First up is for comments not on this agenda. And if you'd like to approach the board, you'd have 3 minutes. Yes. So state your name and address, Amy, for the record.
All right. My name is Amy Everett. I'm the local president of, I'm the union president for Local 173. Am I on the clock?
Yep.
Okay. Good morning, commissioners. On behalf of the members of Local 173, I am here to express our deep concern regarding the proposed 2% cost of living adjustment. While we appreciate the county's recognition that wage adjustments are necessary, a 2% increase does not reflect the economic realities that our members face every day. Over the past several years, the cost of goods and services has risen significantly. Gas prices continue to fluctuate, and that places a further burden on our members and their families. As you know, a majority of our members are commuters. This wasn't the case when I was hired in Polk County in 2011. Many of our members are dedicated public employees, and some of them also have a second job. They deserve compensation that allows them to maintain a reasonable standard of living. We respectfully ask the board to do the right thing, reconsider the proposed 2% COLA, and offer an increase that accurately reflects the current inflation and the true cost of living. Show the members of Local 173 that you value us. Thank you for your time and consideration. Now I'm going to read a letter from Jenna Lee, who works in crisis. Good morning, my name is Jenna, and I work on the Polk County crisis team. I know everyone is feeling the effects of the economy right now. I understand that budgets are tight, and I don't expect anything unreasonable. But I do want to share what a 2% COLA means from where I stand. For years, I've worked on at least 2, sometimes even 3 jobs to make sure my family was comfortable and had what they needed. This past year, I made the difficult decision to let those extra jobs go because I wanted to give my full energy to this community. The work we do in crisis isn't something we do halfway. People deserve our best, especially when they're experiencing some of the hardest moments of their lives. The reality is that our jobs have changed dramatically in the last year. In just the last year, we've seen more people, more families, more complex situations than even before. We continue to step up because that's what our community needs us to do. I love my job. I'm proud to serve Polk County, and I truly believe in the work we do. That's exactly why I'm still here today, striving to be part of this solution. A 2% COLA doesn't come close to reflecting what inflation has done to my family's budget. It doesn't reflect the increasing demands of the work or the commitment that many county employees continue to show every single day. I'm not asking to get rich. I'm simply asking for the cost of living adjustments that actually helps working families keep up with the cost of living. We choose careers in public service because we care about our community. We just hope our community and our leadership will show the same care for the people who continue to show up day after day to serve it. Thank you for your time.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. And then I have letters I want to submit. Thank you.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. Can you hear me? Great. Name is Rolando Figueroa. I'm the council representative for AFSCME Council 75. I reside at 4882 Abraham Avenue Northeast, Salem, Oregon 97301. I'm reading a statement on behalf of employee Michelle Mendoza. Good morning. I am proud to stand here today as a union member, speaking not just for myself, but for the hardworking employees who keep this county running every single day. The 2% cost of living increase is not enough. It doesn't keep up with inflation. Every trip to the grocery store costs more. Gas costs more. Utilities cost more. Housing costs more. Our families are being asked to stretch every dollar while we're being told that 2% should be enough. Well, it isn't. What makes this even harder to accept is that surrounding counties are paying their employees more. We're losing talented, dedicated workers because they simply can't afford to stay here. Those of us who remain pick up the extra work, carry heavier workloads, and continue serving our community with pride. Yet we're expected to settle for wages that continue to fall behind. Let's call this what it is. It's disrespect. Respect isn't shown through words, it's shown through action. If the county truly values its employees, then it needs to invest in the people who provide these essential services every day. As union members, we believe in solidarity. We believe that when we stand together, our voices cannot be ignored. This fight isn't just about a percentage, it's about dignity, it's about fairness. It's about making sure every employee can provide for their family without falling further behind year after year. We're not asking for luxury, we're asking for a fair contract, fair wages, and the respect we've earned. Our work has value, our families have value, and today we're standing together to say enough is enough. It's time to invest in the people who make this county work. Thank you. Also submit these. Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the board with comments not on this agenda?
I would. So to the two members of the negotiating team that are sitting at the table, how is this negotiating in good faith? In my almost 16 years here, I have never seen this display. And if these folks want to negotiate out in the open public, I'm ready. But this is peculiar behavior to me.
I agree that it is peculiar behavior, and I don't believe it deserves to be addressed at this time.
Interesting.
I want to take this up because this is inappropriate.
Be glad to talk to you about it.
Well, you should have done that before you came and put your complaints on the public record.
Called First Amendment.
Oh, well, I have that too.
Absolutely, you do.
I would remind us to just confine the bargaining to the bargaining table where it belongs.
The public just got to watch how that doesn't happen.
Okay. Last comment, or anybody else like to address the board for comments on the agenda? Moving on, looking for approval of agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Approval of minutes from July 15th, 2026.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. And approval of consent calendar.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Which brings us to public hearing, ratification of hearing officer's decision for planning file CU 2514. Sydney Mulder, or Sydney Shorter, please.
Morning.
Good morning.
For the record, I'm Sydney Shorter, Planning Manager for the Community Development Department. Today's public hearing is for the board to determine whether or not to ratify the hearings officer's decision denying planning file CU 25-14, which is a conditional use application proposing to establish a youth camp in the Timber Conservation Zoning District. This application also evaluated a significant resource management plan for road construction within the inventory deer and elk habitat area. The subject property is approximately 100.7 acres in size and is located at 7425 Gold Creek Road in Willamina. On June 10th, 2026, the hearings officer issued an administrative order denying the application. A timely appeal was submitted by the applicant on June 23rd. The full record, the hearings officer's decision, the appeal, and a staff memorandum were provided to the board on June 24th. On July 1st, the board directed staff to schedule a public hearing to ratify the hearings officer's decision. The applicable criteria for today's public hearing is found in Polk County Zoning Ordinance sections 111.280 and 119.120. After considering public testimony at today's hearing, the board could choose to either ratify the hearings officer's decision as the final local decision and adopt order number 26-13, or the board could direct staff to schedule a de novo public hearing at a later date to consider additional evidence. Staff recommends that the board open the public hearing to receive testimony, deliberate, and ratify the hearings officer's denial of CU 25-14 as the final local decision by adopting order number 26-13. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open this public hearing. I'd like to turn it over to our county counsel to start. Mr. Morgan Smith.
Thank you, Commissioner. Initially, I would ask to call for the board if there's any abstentions required due to ex parte contact or conflicts of interest.
No.
No.
Thank you. At this point, I'll address the public that is here to give comments. I would note that all testimony must be directed toward the applicable legal criteria as identified in Sydney Shorter's presentation. Please do not repeat previous testimony. Simply note for the record that you're in agreement with the earlier testimony. All members of the public will be limited to 3 minutes per presentation. I will be keeping time for that. And without any further ado, I will hand it back to Commissioner Mortforst for the public hearing.
Thank you. I'd like to open to the applicant if they'd like to make some statements.
Thank you so much, members of the board, for your time and attention today. My name is Ty Wyman, and I am the applicant's attorney, and my contact information is already of record. I am joined today by an executive team on behalf of Sulamita Recreation Center, as well as to my left, Zach Peltz, who is our expert planner. If you review the record, you would see that he provided a great deal of planning work on this. As to that record, I have submitted 2 documents to you. June 23rd appeal that stated that assigned error to each of the bases of denial that were have been tendered to you by the hearings officer. And I also submitted to you a memorandum yesterday. I submitted it through Ms. Panetta. I'd like to get confirmation that that memorandum has made its way to you.
We did receive the memorandum, but the case is kind of sullen.
It has been received by the Board of the Commissioners. Whether or not it's considered part of the record will be a determination at a later date, but we have received it. And that confirmation was already sent to your office and it has been distributed to the board.
Good, thank you. So with that, with a complete record, we are here primarily for any questions that you might have. I certainly don't relish you this decision, as I don't relish you other decisions that I know you have to make that are difficult. But barring such questions, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Peltz to go through a little bit of his specific thoughts on the hearings officer's decision.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. My name is Zach Peltz. I'm a land use planner with AKS Engineering. I'm here on behalf of Sulamita Recreation Center to appeal the denial of this conditional use application for a planned youth camp on the approximately 100-acre site at 7425 Gold Creek Road. At its core, this proposal is a carefully designed, largely self-contained outdoor youth camp, and that's a use that the Oregon law and the Polk County Timber Conservation Zone expressly permit and expressly recognize as being an appropriate use when done appropriately and planned and conditioned in a manner that works with those requirements. The record clearly demonstrates that this application meets those requirements. First, the site is suitable to provide the forested setting required for a youth camp. The standard is forward-looking. It asks whether the property is suitable to provide that setting, not whether every acre of the site is presently mature forest. This site has a history of forest cover, active replanting, substantial acreage, topographic features, a creek and a reservoir, and the ability to offer a self-contained outdoor experience. The applicant has also offered a forest stewardship plan that will ensure continued reforestation and forest management. Second, the proposal provides meaningful protection for surrounding properties. The code doesn't require that the camp be completely invisible or silent. It requires reasonable separation and mitigation. Here, the project includes substantial setbacks, planted buffer areas, cluster development, topographic screening, and future vegetation growth. The applicant's acoustic expert concluded that anticipated impacts would remain within reasonable limits, and that evidence was not rebutted by any competing expert analysis. Third, the recreational elements are appropriate for a forest setting. The proposed cabins, yurts, trails, outdoor games, and reservoir-based recreation are passive, camp-oriented improvements. They will not dominate or change the character of the forest environment. Fourth, the applicant submitted a deer and elk habitat management plan that was developed in coordination with an ODFW habitat biologist. That plan addresses habitat restoration, reforestation, native browse, seasonal operations, restricted winter vehicle activity, and continued coordination with ODFW and Polk County. Development is clustered on a limited portion of the property, leaving most of the site available for forest management and habitat functions. The application addresses potential harm from farm and forest impacts through transportation controls, bus participants, setbacks, buffers, fire planning, noise controls, and habitat measures. The evidence does not show the camp would force a significant change in or material increase the cost of neighboring farm or forest practices. Finally, where the county identifies remaining technical questions, those matters are appropriately resolved through conditions of approval, not denial. The applicant has offered conditions addressing fire safety, transportation, water service, noise, reforestation, seasonal operations, and pre-occupancy review. It is also offered to eliminate the spring break session if necessary.
That's time, sir.
Thank you.
So we're just open to your questions, and that would include members of the Sulamita executive team.
Questions, gentlemen? At this time. I would just like to reach out to staff. Would you like the opportunity to do any rebuttal? No. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to open up for public comment. For those that like to comment on this, those that are against the proposed camp will speak first. Okay. And your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
So good morning, commissioners. Thank you for hearing our comments today. My name is Barbara Smith, and my husband Ron Smith and I own the Gold Creek Ranch, which is directly across the road from the Sulamita LLC proposed camp. Immediately upon purchasing the property, Sulamita LLC performed significant land clearing, expansion of a reservoir, road building, campsite prep, and disturbance of wetlands without requesting or obtaining any permits from Polk County. There was a significant amount of ground disturbance and vegetation removed adjacent to Gold Creek. Due to this and other unpermitted activities, there is an active code enforcement order in place. Since the purchase of the property, Sulamita has submitted and withdrawn several versions of both camp and floodplain development applications. These have included plans for RV hookups, a spa house, and many, many permanent structures. A bit of history, because I know that's a really big file that Sydney had there. In December of 2022, Sulamita Recreation Center submitted a conditional use application to build a venue, potentially serving both youth and adults. That application became void in 2023, July. They applied again in June 2023, withdrew the application. Sulamita applied a third time in February 2024 and withdrew the application. They applied for floodplain development in February 2024 and withdrew the application in March of 2025. Applied for floodplain development in March of 2025, and that application became void. The current application was submitted in December 2025, and the applicant requested 2 separate 30-day extensions. County staff recommended not approving the application and scheduled a public hearing. The applicant requested that the public hearing be rescheduled. At the hearing, there was standing room only. One person spoke in support of the applicant, and there was significant testimony presented orally and in writing in opposition. The hearings officer reviewed the total volume of evidence and denied the application. There are many legal findings that were used to determine that this site is not suitable for youth camp. Here are a few. I trust that you as commissioners have reviewed the recommendations of both the county planning staff and the hearings officer. The site is simply not a forested setting. The camp is fully visible from Gold Creek Road and adjacent properties. This was detailed in both the response from the county staff and the hearings officer. The hearings officer determined that the applicant cannot provide a protected barrier to separate the camp from visual and noise impacts from 350 or more campers. The hearings officer concluded that the unlawfully constructed roads do not support the applicant's argument of minimal deer and elk habitat impact. We at the Gold Creek Ranch have already seen increased elk damage due to the unpermitted development and habitat disturbance that has already taken place. Okay. I would just close by urging that the commission adopt the hearings officer's decision of denial.
Good morning. My name is Pat Wheeler and I live at 12090 Rolling Hills Road, and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of Polk County. The hearings officer report found that the Sulamita application failed to meet 7 review criteria. Lack of a forested setting, lack of protective buffer for visual and audio impacts, failure to limit potential impact on surrounding farm and forest operations, failure to be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the timber conservation zone, and 3 requirements for management of deer and elk habitat. Any one of these deficiencies would be enough to deny the application. It is clear that the application does not meet the approval criteria for a youth camp in a forested region. We urge the Board of Commissioners to ratify the hearings officer denial of this conditional use application. Thank you for considering our testimony.
Anyone else like to address the board? Those opposed? Yes. Your name and address for the record, please, in 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is John Westall. My address is 12090 Rolling Hills Road, Monmouth. I have paid particular attention to the Oregon administrative rule that requires the youth camp to be located on a parcel that is, quote, suitable to provide a forested setting needed to ensure a primarily outdoors experience. The common sense interpretation of this requirement is that you need a forest to provide a forested setting. An easy way to meet this requirement is to start with forested land, cut trees as necessary to make room for the structures. However, the applicant did not start with forested land, but land that had recently been clear cut and currently has no trees on it. That presented a problem. The hearings officer recognized the problem and found that the parcel doesn't meet the requirement for a forested setting, and I concur. On appeal, the applicant seized on the word suitability out of context and interpreted the rule essentially as the parcel has to be suitable for growing trees, but it doesn't actually have to have any trees on it. There are 2 problems with this interpretation. First, it violates the letter of the law by taking suitable out of context. And second, it violates the spirit of the law. I have direct experience that bears on the issue of youth camps, forests, and the spirit of the law. For 4 summers, I worked as a counselor in a summer camp with a bona fide forest. I know that the forest provides not only a sort of spiritual setting with which most people are familiar, but also shade from trees on a hot summer day is highly valuable for summer afternoon activities. As far as I can tell from the aerial photographs, there's essentially no shade available on the parcel except for man-made structures. Is that going to be fair to the campers? I have also owned and managed forest land for the last few decades. Our property is very similar to Sulamita's, so I have a lot of personal experience on what it takes to grow a forest and when a stand of young trees begins to feel like a forest. We currently have stands that are 19, 31, and 46 years old. I would feel okay about reliving my former summer camp experience on the 46-year-old stand. But on the other hand, the 31 and 19-year-old stands would be unsatisfactory.
And that's time, sir.
I urge you to adopt Order 2613, accepting the hearings officer report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of the board. Nolan Smith, address 1673 Southwest Sagebrush Lane in Dallas. I'm an attorney representing the Gold Creek Ranch, owned by Ron and Barbara Smith. As way of background, the Gold Creek Ranch has been a working cattle, hay, and timber operation managed by my clients since 1987. Today, Gold Creek Ranch owns around 100 head of beef cattle, produces over 200 tons of hay and round bale silage annually, and has stands of timber in various stages of reforestation. The hearings officer's decision in this matter was well thought out, detailed, correctly applied the law, and ultimately made the correct findings under the facts that were presented. The comments and appeal provided by Mr. Wyman, counsel for the applicant, do not move the needle. For example, the applicant's appeal offers an interpretation of the term suitable as that term is used in OAR 660-006-0031, but that interpretation offered by the applicant is inconsistent with the term's text and context. The applicant's appeal relies on cases which are entirely distinguishable. For instance, applicant cites in their appeal Talca v. Clackamas County for the proposition that visual impacts need only be lessened, but that case did not involve youth camps and involved an ordinance with an entirely different legal standard than the one at issue in this case. Applicant also cites matter of site certificate for Boardman to Hemingway transmission line, but that is not a land use case, and once again involves completely different legal standards. The applicant's comments argue that the written submissions from their engineer must be accepted as dispositive expert testimony. However, the applicant did not present testimony from any of these so-called experts at the hearing, and the hearings officer did not certify any of the applicant's contractors as an expert. My clients too are certainly experts with respect to numerous subjects, including forest practices and elk movements around the Gold Creek area. But this matter simply does not involve issues requiring expert testimony. It does not take an expert to find that the subject property is clearly visible from Gold Creek Road and adjacent properties. And it doesn't take an expert to know and observe that elk usage on the subject property has changed over the past 3 years. The case the applicant cites, Alliance v. City of Brookings, is distinguishable because that case involved an issue which LUBA found likely required some level of scientific or professional expertise. The issues in this case do not require scientific or professional expertise. The applicant continues by arguing that the proposed youth camp would be comparable to a paintball park, citing Tenant v. Polk County, but fails to grapple with the fact that in that case, the application did not seek the construction of any structures. In fact, in that case, LUBA acknowledged that a park may be disapproved by the county where it would dominate and change the character of the forest environment.
That's time, sir.
Okay, thank you. I urge you to adopt the hearings officer's decision. Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the board in opposition? Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Lisa Hagblom. My address is 7365 Gold Creek Road, Willapina, Oregon. My property shares its north and west boundary with 7425 Gold Creek Road, owned by the Slavic Evangelical Sulamita Church in Portland. In addition to living next door to 7425, I read Sulamita Recreation Center's conditional use permit application for a youth camp there. I provided verbal and written testimony to support the denial of the application and signed a community petition to support the denial of the application. I read the hearing officer's decision to deny the application and the appeal filed by Sulamita's attorney, Ty K. Wyman of Dunn Carney, Allen Higgins, and Tongue LLC. I spoke with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, Oregon Division of Forestry, FEMA, surveyors, and engineers. I read the case files that Mr. Wyman included in his appeal as argument for the approval of the application and learned that in those files, there were equal arguments to support denying the application. I have no doubt there are more case files that would support denying the application. I was also alarmed at the similarities between Sulamita's property development and application to other developments and applications in Oregon. I have reluctantly given up other things to make time to learn as much as I can about this land use process without relative education and work experience in land use issues. I speak out because I love my neighborhood and forever home, and I truly care about impacts we have on our surroundings. Thank you for the time and energy this all takes, and please ratify the hearing officer's decision to deny Sulamita's conditional use permit application for a youth camp.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Don Hodney. I reside at 6610 Gold Creek in Willamina. Honorable board members, I am formally and respectfully requesting the board's ratification of the June 11th, 2026 hearings officer's decision to deny conditional use permit CU 25-14 in the hearings officer's administrative order and findings and conclusions. The Polk County Community Development Department complied with all the applicable permit application and review requirements. It also accommodated and granted the applicant's request for additional time to meet the application content submittal deadlines and for an extension of the first public hearing date. The public hearings officer also complied with all applicable public hearings and permit application review and decisions requirement and correctly applied the standards of the Polk County land use regulations. Both members of the public and Sulamita were granted additional time by the public hearings officer to comment and respond to additional information and comments submitted and added to the record. After thorough review of the record and the applicable review and decision criteria, the hearings officer denied the application to establish the youth camp because it did not demonstrate compliance with all of the applicable review and decision criteria for conditional uses in the Polk County zoning ordinances. I will not enumerate numerous deficiencies here because it is already in the record. But the applicant's failure to meet all, and I mean all of the criteria and requirements is listed and documented in public comments by many of the Gold Creek neighbors and their supporters, also in the Polk County Planning Staff Report and in the hearings officer's administrative order and findings and conclusions. To put it simply, in addition to ratifying the hearings officer's findings, conclusions, the decisions, my request is that Sulamita be required to rectify the enormous harm to the environment they caused on the property, particularly the wetlands, the eradication of the wetlands, the deer and elk habitat. Fines seem to have no merit in their understanding. Having permits seems to not be a concern based on their history. But these things need to be remedied for our community as well as for the county. Thank you for your consideration.
Hi, my name is Kelly Hodney. I am also at 6610 Gold Creek in Willamina, Oregon. I am respectfully requesting the board's ratification of the hearings officer's decision to deny conditional use permit CU 2514. In its appeal, the applicant alleged Polk County did not correctly apply the standards of the Polk County land use regulations. And due to limited time, I'm only going to touch on a few of them. The applicant erroneously stated the public hearings officer could not consider public comment or other information on the protective buffer and noise study, which failed to address why the EQC's residential maximum noise levels weren't used instead of industrial or commercial, since the parcel is in a rural residential area. It also failed to address why the more conservative requirements for OAR quiet areas, which includes game reserves and wildlife breeding areas, or noise-sensitive properties weren't used. And it failed to include motorized vehicles. In addition to buses and other vehicles, the applicant has refused to commit to prohibiting the use of motorized recreational vehicles on the property. With regard to the visual impacts, compounding the lack of adequate surrounding forest area on the property itself is the proposed addition of more than 50 new buildings on top of the hill. And the fact that the fire management plan would not allow the planting of trees near those buildings, leaving them further exposed. To quote Matthew 5:14, a city set on a hill cannot be hid. This would indeed be a city on a hill that cannot be hid. The applicant implies ODFW's approval of the habitat management plan and by extension its application. This is not the case, and it omits important facts such as the applicant did not incorporate ODFW's last review comments, and the applicant used misdirection by referring to the unpermitted and unlawfully constructed roads as existing roads, trying to disguise the fact they must be considered new roads and conflicting uses in the habitat. The applicant erroneously states the public hearings officer decision refused to apply conditions of approval. In its appeal, applicant stated it is seeking conditions of approval to cure non-compliances. And in its May 19 submittal, it also recognized it did not meet all the applicable review and decision criteria, stating conditions of approval may be necessary to ensure that the planned youth camp use is compatible with the zone. The application must meet all the minimum conditional use zoning requirements and meet all applicable review and decision criteria on its own merits in order to be approvable. PCZO 119.060 specifically states restrictions or limitations for the conditional use may be prescribed, but may not reduce any requirement or standard which is specifically required by this ordinance to be included as a condition to the use. The hearings officer got it right. The application would significantly negatively impact the habitat area. And in contrast to permitted youth camps, the Sulamita parcel is not situated and insulated within a forested area. It is actually fully exposed on two sides because it is located on the exterior corner of the timber conservation zone. It cannot now meet that requirement to provide a forested environment, and it cannot in the future provide an audio-visual buffer to adequately shield the neighboring and nearby properties from the impacts of its operations because of its unique geography, topography, and exposed location.
And that's time.
Thank you for consideration.
Anyone else like to address the board in opposition? Okay, now I'd like to open up for those who'd like to speak in favor. I'd like to address the board in favor of. Okay. With that, we're going to open up for. Do I need to close the public hearing?
Close the hearing first.
I'll close the public hearing at this time. I'm looking for discussion. Discussion. In that case, I'm looking for a motion.
I move to ratify the hearings officer's decision.
I'll second that.
The motion to move and ratify a decision on CU 2514 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay. Do we have a need for executive session?
No, sir.
Okay. With that, we are closed.